you're no stranger to this rivalry with Hamilton, but Ryan just called this a must-win game for you guys. Like, is that the sense of urgency you feel like you guys have going into this game?
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. I mean, yeah, usually you don't see games like that this early in the season, but the way things are shaking out, yeah, I would agree with that, and that's the mindset we're taking in this game. It's going to be a good one.
You played against Bullet and Mitchell for quite a while in this league. What's something you feel like you guys can do as a defense to ensure that he's not, comfortable in this game?
Well, you kind of took what I was going to say. I was going to say make him uncomfortable. I think, throw some different looks at him, try to get some pressure on him when we are rushing, things like that. Just don't let him settle into a groove and have life easy back there.
And I was going to ask that too. How much do you want him to kind of be the gunslinger? Because in that system with Scott, it's a lot of 7, 15-yard passes, really to keep him contained as they're going down the field. How much do you want to throw those looks and say, hey, you know what, try to go ahead and go over the top and then kind of mess with the guys?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, just keep them guessing. Don't let them, don't give everything away. Try to make them actually do some reads instead of just making it easy pitch and catch out there. So yeah, we'll just try to keep switching up the looks and get some pressure on them, different things like that.
What's leadership look like to you at this point in your career? You've established yourself as one of the outstanding linebackers in this league. So I know you're not a rah-rah type, but what does leadership look like to you when a team is in the situation that you guys find yourselves?
Yeah, like you said, I'm not too big of a rah-rah guy, but I love to just lead by example. Go out there, play hard. But being in the league so long, if I see stuff, that can help guys, I'm trying to vocalize that a lot better this stage of my career. Because I've seen a lot of things. I've been in a lot of different situations. So with young guys, just kind of passing on that experience to them, and leading by example as well.
Is that more like you'd rather pop a guy maybe than put your arm around a guy's shoulder?
Whatever the situation needs, sometimes, yeah, just going out there, laying some wood on some people, giving maximum effort every play is what it takes. But, sometimes you do have to say some things to some young guys, whether they, down on themselves or unsure of themselves, being the vote of confidence for them, helping them out.
You've been a part of all 3 rivalries in this country. UCLA, USC is always a good one. What makes a rivalry game different?
I think you're representing the city, and when the cities are clashing, you're kind of the one who actually gets to go out there and try and prove it, for everyone in Toronto. So, I feel like you bring more than just yourself to the table, you're representing. I mean, every game you kind of are, but like I said, when the cities are kind of clashing, you get to represent for them, so try to make them leave here happy.
Eric, can we expect 2 touchdowns from you one night?
I guess that's always the plan, you prepare and try to make as many plays as you can when you get the opportunity. So, my plan is to have a good game and, execute the game plan that we've been working on all week.
You look very comfortable with the ball in your hand. I'm wondering if your time with the Colts working as a receiver sort of helped that.
Yeah, I think, when you're training as a receiver, you're working all the ball drills, you're doing all the, you're catching the ball all the time, and, you really can't drop the ball when you're a receiver. That's kind of your job. And I also would say, like, growing up, playing both ways. I grew up in a small town. I think, doing all that my whole life, I think that, also helps kind of when those off-schedule kind of plays are happening, you don't really feel like out of place necessarily.
How big was last week's win for this club?
Yeah, it's huge. Now we get an opportunity to keep stacking wins, and, I think everyone here is excited for that.
When's the last time you ran that far, that fast?
That often?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know. I was telling my dad after the game, I was like, it might have been back in youth football when I was in 6th grade or something. You get one of those long returns, and youth football, you can swing the field a lot. But yeah, it's been, I don't know, 2 of them in one game. Yeah, the second one, my legs were starting to lock up by the time, especially the CFL field, pretty big. So, yeah.
Have you started to be a little bit of a student of the history? I know you used to watch the CFL, being at home not too far away from Canada, but knowing the role that you've been kind of playing, really featuring in all 3 facets. Last time that we saw someone like this was Eric Harris, who played for the Ticats and ended up playing for the Falcons as well in the NFL. Do you know anything about that? Like how there was a time where 2-way players were very, very normal in this league.
Yeah, I'm still kind of learning, all the history of the game. I find it really interesting. So anytime anyone's talking about it, Pinball's talking about something with past players and stuff, I'm always listening. I ironically enough, like growing up close to Toronto, I had never been to Toronto, but I was aware of the Argonauts, and I would follow them throughout high school on my Instagram. So I'm still kind of learning the history of like the players and stuff, but I always would watch, and my dad would talk about some of the stuff in the CFL, because I know back in like when he was growing up, there were still players that were commonplace coming from the CFL back to the NFL, and were honestly like changing the way, you know, professional players, like the landscape was at the time. So I do know some of it, but not, I'm still kind of learning. I'm still green a little bit. But
What do you think allows you, when the situation presents itself, to play in all three phases? Like, is it the way that you understand the concepts? Is it your listening skill? Like, what do you think allows you to do that?
yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to like watching film. I think it also is like, you know, being a student of the game when coaches are teaching things, and even if they're not necessarily talking to you about your job, you're still listening, you're taking notes on things. I think that's something I've always prided myself on. I played a little bit of quarterback in high school, so it was like one of those things, you know, you kind of learn to understand holistically what's going on conceptually in the game. So that's kind of like been my mindset in sports since I was a kid. You know, my mom and dad would like pick on me. I used to draw plays and stuff on a whiteboard, and that was always something that I like was like intrigued by. So I think that's really what I can like put a pin in on it.
Have you asked Ryan to be a quarterback in some situations, some packages?
No, I haven't. Yeah, I mean, one of the guys, I think Nick was picking on me. He's like, "Hey, do you think, you know, if worst case scenario happened, do you think you could be able to do it?" And I was like, I mean, I think I think I would know like what is going on, but I was like, it might not look good. It might end up being like a forward interception in a quarter, you know, thing. So, but
You kept both footballs. Are they still in Canada, or do they go across the border with your folks?
I still got to get them from Danny, you know, but yeah, they're gonna probably stay here. They might go back across, you know. I know my grandpa would think it's pretty cool, so I might send one back with him to have him at his house.
What's your grandfather's name?
Teddy. Yeah.
Teddy?
Yeah.
And your dad's name?
Mike. Yeah.
Well, what does that do to you when you get your teammates celebrating you like that after getting the ball?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best part about it. You know, I happen to have my head coach from college there, and one of my teammates I'm a close friend with, and I hadn't seen him in a while. And my family was there, and just celebrating with the guys. I think for me, that was the most memorable part of it, was just like celebrating that win, and then also celebrating, you know, and seeing their reactions of my family when I walked out in front of the buses. Like, that's something I'll never forget, and I think that's like the best part of sports, is when you're celebrating. That's why I love football. I think it's such a team sport, and other sports it's not celebrated in the same way necessarily. So I think that's, to me, what's the most special part about it.
Was last week's game a coming out party for you, do you think?
I mean, I think it, in my mind, I don't know if that's how I was, you know, approaching it, but I would say, yeah, sure. I mean, it can be. I think every game I approach it the same. Like this week, I don't change my like prep, like as far as how I'm approaching it. So I mean, you know, the goal is always the goal, and it's always to get the win, and then also, you know, find ways to have opportunities to make plays yourself. So I mean, yeah, I guess coming out party would fit.
Well, I guess
yeah.
it's a coming out party for us.
Yeah, yeah.
The missed field goal return went viral in the States too.
Yeah.
How much feedback did you get from friends, maybe people you didn't expect to hear from, who saw that online?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of people from my hometown, but then also a lot of college teammates I had played with. You know, I'm not on like social media too much, especially in season. I kind of try to keep my head down, but you know, it was pretty cool. You know, all my teammates and stuff were reaching out to me, sending things. I think my mom was probably the most excited about all of it. She loves, you know, all that stuff. So you know, I had a couple friends being like, holy, like I'd see group chats of them, hey, did you see what Derek just did? So that's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, it's cool that, you know, a lot of those guys are starting to like see the CFL game too, because I think they're starting to see how fun it is, and I think a lot of Americans would if they opened up to it a little bit more.
4 games. I mean, did you envision this kind of start to your season?
Just working on my preparation. I'm not really thinking about sacks, just really thinking about more just winning.
Okay. So how have you got the sacks that you've gotten?
Just by doing film study, always working, and definitely my off-season preparation has been like a very huge help. And I think just following the plan and just doing what coach tells me to do.
Are you getting one-on-one right now, or are you finding that you're starting to get more attention?
Yeah, they're giving my one-on-one chances. I like that. I get one-on-one chances. I like sometimes, even if you want to chip me, you want to play doubles, I still want to play. Like I still want to dominate the guy in front of me. So if it is a one-on-one or it is a double, I'm potentially still want to win. Like, yeah.
I mean, you didn't get any sacks with Ottawa last year, but obviously you showed Coach Marshall enough that when he came here, he brought you. And I'm wondering what's transpired here for you that maybe didn't.
Well, in Ottawa, I came mid-season.
Yeah.
You know, they already got their guys. You know, so since they already had their guys, I'm just here to help the team at this point. So came in mid-season. You know, Coach Marshall obviously seen something special into me. You know, when I came in, and yeah, got me over here and been good ever since.
I guess starting the year in training camp and starting with everybody else would have been,
it would have been better. It would have been better for me. But at the time, I was I think I was in camp with Kansas City at the time. So when I went over there, I was in mid-season. That was like mid-season for you guys, I think. Yeah.
How much did you recognize that was going to be a position of need here with this team, given some of the turnover they had, losing someone like Florian Malade, not having those pass rushes that they had relied on for a few years?
I seen it as a big opportunity, to be honest. I see that Coach Marshall is a great coach too, and that a lot of defensive ends left. You know, I seen a lot of defensive ends left, and I just thought, you know, this might be my time to just, you know, show what I got.
And that yard off, how do you utilize it to your advantage?
I don't think about it. Football is football, right? The guy in front of you is the guy in front of you. You just got to beat him.
Do you have to change, though, your point of attack, your launch point? Or
the only thing different is just like they just got a little bit more space. So I gotta get up on their space a little bit. So I do focus on getting off the rock. Like, you know, that's like my biggest main focus is getting off the ball. You know what I'm saying? Making sure like that yard and a half is like not even close. You know, like I can get a little bit more in the space.
Anything in training that you did to adjust to kind of utilize that?
Not adjust, because I always felt like it was just normal. Even the first time when I came, it's just more like now I can see more. Actually, it actually helped me a little bit more.
Like pre-snap.
Yeah,
when you get your stance,
like when I get in my stance, I'm like, wow, like okay, this is helping me a little bit. So it ain't bad.
Ottawa really didn't have a CFL rival like Toronto. Hamilton is a rivalry. What's the best rivalry you were a part of, either in college or high school?
College, I'll probably say, I guess when I was at Florida versus Alabama, SEC championship. Yeah, that was crazy. Or Georgia, probably.
What's your best memory from one of those games?
Getting a sack. I'll be honest, it was getting a sack for sure. Even Oregon game, I remember we played against Oregon, so that was a good game too. So yeah.
I'd like for that to happen, but you can't count on it. You know, he changed the game. Obviously, you know, his performance is why we won that football game.
You're playing Hamilton and some rivalries.
Yeah, well, rivalry's always going to be there, right? But there's a lot of stakes, right? I mean, we're both you know, you don't want to get stuck in both of those, right? So it's a big game. It feels like a must win. Yeah, we got to get after him, right? You look at all three performances last year, right? We didn't get to him enough, and so he had a big game, right? So I think if we can disrupt the pocket, right, that's going to disrupt him. And then get rid of the ball a little bit early, that's when the secondary gets into it.
Is there any way of finding an advantage of taking him out of Scott's system, like forcing Bo to keep pushing the ball? Because that system that Scott is in kind of requires him to stay contained in most circumstances. So is maybe the trick in those, like, making him think he sees something downfield to kind of disrupt what he's doing while also pushing him out the pocket?
Yeah, no doubt. I think we got to take the simple throws away early on, especially on first down. And, you know, they're going to hit the shots, right? They're obviously going to run them. They're max protected, right? We got to make sure we get the quarterback even those runs. So if he doesn't have a clean pocket, he's not, you know, popping his hips and getting on top of the football, that's when the ball kind of sells, and that's when the DBs make plays on it.
This team has had so much success. We've talked about it. The whole mantra this year is not looking back. But over the course of the last 3-4 seasons, because there has been turnover, a lot of it, how long has it taken you to kind of see the locker room come together? Not only emotionally, but all the position groups kind of get a sense of what all their objectives are. Just because leaders in those groups, in particular, you have leaders, but some of those guys have moved on and there's been consistent turnover.
Yeah, no doubt. I think the locker room, I think, is pretty solid as far as, you know, the way they treat each other, the way they work together and challenge each other to get better. But we just got to play better on the field, right? We got some new players. Yeah, I get it, but we also have some new players doing some good things for us, right? Some of our veterans on the offense need to pick their game up and take it to another level to help out some of these young kids.
So that means we're going to see more packages for Ryan Hunter and opportunities for him to get the football more?
Well, we'll see. I think, he's always our short yardage tight end player, right? So we designed that for him. We had another one last week. We don't have much this week. So we just got to find ways to get creative to get in the end zone.
Locker room coach, the social media team shared the video, just after the game. It's like you guys are very happy about the game. Talk to me about the feeling that everyone had about just getting that one.
I think more relief, that we got it done and then, gets their spirits in the right situation, right? You build confidence through wins, right? But every win we've had, that locker room always is like that, right? It's tough to win in professional sports. When you do, you got to celebrate it. So I was happy to see that.
Well, why do you describe it as a must-win? Because both teams had certain expectations. You guys went to champions. They made a lot of turnover on their roster, brought in a lot of big pieces. Why does it feel that way week 4 5?
Well, I think just we put ourselves in a hole starting 0-3, right? So, we got them here at home. We always want to win our home games. We're 0-2 at home. We're not used to that. So, we got to go to Hamilton, right? And that's a tough place to play with the crowd noise and all that stuff. So, we got to take advantage of this opportunity.
How close is Win?
He'll be available after the bye.
Anybody else you expect to be back after the bye?
Yeah, Parrish will be back as well. And then we'll see with some other guys. Hopefully, D-Money will be available too.
Ryan, how much of a surprise is Chatfield?
Well, not really. I think, Greg Marshall had him in Ottawa. Was, very impressed by him. So we got him on our radar. And we thought he was going to be a good player. Obviously, the start of the season has been pretty spectacular. But we got to keep it up. I think he's going to be a good player in this league.